How you doing, Chuck? I've heard a lot about you.
How you
Chuck
doing?
the Diver.
Nice to
I've
meet
heard
you.
him say your name a million times.
I'd like to welcome everybody back to This Week in Burns here. And today, we've got the diver, Mr. Chuck Ward. Chuck, I'm glad you came in and talked with us, man.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself, man, how you got started or whatever, you know.
Well, I moved to the country in 1991 to help take care of my grandmother. And of course, in the country, there's not a lot of work around. I ended up at a sawmill, and wasn't long I started noticing these boats running up down the road, the, weird looking equipment in them. I was like, what are y'all doing? And diving for mussel shells for the cultured pearl industry. I'm like, what? That's crazy, you know? Finally got one of them to teach me how to do it, and ever since I got my head underwater the first time, it's all she wrote. 30 years ago.
So it's been 30 years ago.
Well, it'll be 30 years in May.
Yeah.
I've been in 1995. I started this.
So when you done it, then you like doing it?
Oh, yeah.
You stayed with it for 30 years,
Yeah, working for yourself, nobody over your head.
Yeah.
Go to work when you need to, and digging shells for the cultured pearl industry was amazing because you can make really good money. Very little training. Of course, back when I started, the first year I started diving, there was like 8 guys that drowned that first year out of 2,500 or so shell licenses sold in the state of Tennessee. The next
Maybe
year,
you want to jump right into it.
right? Well, and a lot of that was guys working off, just equipment they shouldn't be using, and probably a lot of them on drugs or half drunk, because there was just nobody really watching what you were doing.
So y'all are regulated now by the state?
Well, it's always been regulated to size of what size shells and what species we can harvest. There's predominantly a handful of mussels that we would collect, like the washboard, the three ridge, the pigtoe, the maple leaf, the ebony shells. Those were all really good quality shells for the cultured pearl industry. And the mother of pearl that comes out of the Tennessee River is the best quality of mother of pearl anywhere in the world. For years, way before they started diving for the shells, they used to collect them and make buttons out of them for the button factories. You used to see all these shells with holes punched out there. Those were for buttons before plastic was invented.
Yeah, well, I seen you had some.
Yeah, we've got a bunch of them right here. Those buttons are probably 100+ years old for all I know.
Really?
But now these little beads here, this is what they would cut out of a shell, the thick part of the shell here. I'll hold it up and you can see how thick that is. That's half an inch thick nearly. So you can punch out a bead like this one, which is as old and dirty, but you implant that into an ocean oyster, and then the oyster coats it with nacre, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like a piece of sand that gets into an oyster and creates a natural pearl. They're just speeding up the process with the cultured pearl.
So that's what's wrong with my belly.
Right. Mine too, especially when I use beer to as a liquid.
Yeah.
Comes out the place and grow bigger and bigger and bigger, yeah. So I guess what I was asking, if I was wanting to be a diver today, is there any kind of license that you gotta get into?
Well,
Or you gotta apply with the state, or?
Yeah, if you want to dive for mussel shells, the only thing the state of Tennessee requires is a mussel shell license, which costs you $245 through the state. It's like a hunting and fishing license. They don't require you to be certified. They don't come and test your gear and make sure it's safe. That's all on you.
Right.
And that's why back in the day when the money was really good in the shell business, there was thousands of us out there on any particular day of the week digging mussel shells. Now we're down to like 5 guys. In the wintertime. This summer it might pick up 12 or 15, but it's a dying art, it'll soon be over.
Do you ever get concerned out there? I know, like, if I'm pulling my kids on the river, got them on a tube, and they fall off them, especially on a holiday or a weekend. Do you ever get concerned about some diver, some boat out there, some boat weekender come out there and don't really know the rules of the water and gonna run over you?
Right. Well, and the boat ramps used to have signs that said "Watch out for divers," and we're required by law to fly flags: a diver down flag and an alpha flag. Which the diver down flag, I'm sure everybody's seen. It's the red with the white stripe through it. The alpha flag is a blue and white flag, which means that there is a diver in the water, but he's connected to the boat via an umbilical, some kind of hose. If you see just a diver down flag, he's probably diving with just scuba gear. But the blue flag, the alpha flag on there, you know, there's a guy in the water, but he's got a hose connected to him. And yeah, we've always been worried about somebody, you know, running over. I've had countless encounters with fishermen and people getting too close, because they're not supposed to get within 200 feet of a diver.
That's why my question
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
so if we see that as a, you know, a boat person like I am, or, you know, just somebody likes to get a play, I need to stay at least 200 foot away from all the markings.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
back in the day, it was really vital because there were so many of us. Today, there's just a handful of us, and the ones that's been doing it now have been like me, you know, they've been doing it 20+ years, and we don't dive on holidays. It's against the law for us to work on the 3 holidays in the summer: Labor Day, Memorial Day, and 4th of July.
Like I say, where that can be dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, you get everybody out there, and yeah, so we just.
I kinda like to stay away from the river
Yeah, I
today
do too,
myself,
that-
you know.
that's for sure.
And we often tried to get them to let us dive at night, you know, because there's nobody out there at night. You know, hey, it's safe time. 'Cause
Right.
when you get down in that water, it's pitch black anyway,
dark
so
anyway.
you don't need the daylight. But another rule of diving for mussel shells is daylight to dark. You know, from sunset or sunup to sunset. It's the only time we're allowed. And I think it has to do a lot with policing the industry. You know, because
Right.
game wardens don't want to be out there at night coming around, check to see if you got a license, check to see if you're harvesting small shells or
Right.
illegal shells.
Well, that kinda leads me into this, I mean,
Yeah.
you're down there pitch dark, and it's gonna be kinda scary to me. You ever put your hand on something and say, uh-oh, what is that?
Yeah, many times.
What do you do when you, oh, what is that?
Many years ago, a lot of us, the first few years, just didn't even use a light. But then we discovered that we could use a sealed beam halogen headlight up to about, 40 or 50 feet. You know, then the thing would implode on you. But we finally got some light down there. And so that helped a lot. You know, when you can see, it's obviously, it's like a comfort blanket, you know, security blanket. When
yeah.
you got a little light, at least you can see.
See what you're grabbing hold of.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The worst diving I guess I ever did was down in Alabama. We bought out a state license to dive in Alabama, down there on the Alabama River. We were 1 lock away from the Gulf of Mexico. And the first day there, I see a giant bull shark swimming right over the top of me. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Is that the 10 time? Is that what you're talking
No, I think it does actually
about?
connect.
The reason why I say that
He had
is,
no
the
experience
reason why I
in
say that is, this year I decided, last May, that I was gonna take my F-tide,
Yeah.
and I left Cuba Landing, and I ended up at, Gulf Shores, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
And I did the 10 time experience,
Right.
13 locks and
Yeah.
the alligators and stuff.
Right?
And when I hit that Gulf of Mexico, I mean, not the Gulf of Mexico, when I come into the, what's the harbor down there, the shipping yard in Alabama?
That's something big.
Bay, the
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Mobile Bay.
Mobile Bay, okay.
Yeah, man, it was a different experience. And anybody that wants to take a boat from the Tennessee River to through the 10 Tom and to the Mobile Bay, I suggest it. But learn what to do when you get to the bay, because I learned the hard way. If the tides are going one way and the wind going another way, you shouldn't be on the Mobile Bay in a 20-foot runabout.
Right, well, I
Yeah.
stick to fresh water, so I'm not gonna get out there in the ocean or anything like that. Now, one time they quit buying shells many years ago, and I went to work at Florida for Typhoon Lagoon, which is a water park. And my job was every night in the shark tank cleaning all the fake fiberglass, algae, or coral reef. It was fake.
Yeah.
And it was meant to simulate coral reef, and they had all these different species of sharks in there. And that was a good experience. So that way, when I got in the Alabama River and finally seen that bull shark, I knew, oh shoot, that's a bull shark.
That's
You
what
know?
I knew what it was.
But and I already knew the mentality of a shark. You don't mess with them, they're not gonna mess with you. You're not a food source, so they don't care. But when I seen, after about 4 months being down there, the guys started complaining about how the alligators were getting used to us and they're starting to get real close and get curious. And I'm like, man, y'all are full of crap. I've seen one alligator the whole time I've been here. And like, have you been down there at night? I'm like, why am I going down there at night? I can't dive at night. Go down there when you get done with your steak and just look. I pulled down on that boat ramp, my headlights went across that river, was nothing but dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of sets of eyes. Had to be 60 of them right there where we were diving. So I went back to the hotel room, told my helper, said, pack up, we're going back to Tennessee in the morning. I'm going back to work where I'm on top of the food
I
chain.
heard that, yes, sir.
I feel like that with sharks, you know, I don't mess with sharks, I'm not going out there in the ocean, but I'm gonna tell you what, you went up on the beach, I'll drop kick and kick the crap out of it. But I'm not gonna go out in the water and mess with one, you know what I'm saying?
You know, I'll stick to fresh water.
Yep, I don't blame you. And alligators try to work their way through, you notice that?
Well,
Alligators.
Well,
over here.
we've got, they've been sighted at Pickwick, which is just
Yeah.
100 miles south of here, and,
Alright,
but they're just not.
yeah,
Abundant.
when did you sail? How far down was you when you started sailing?
Probably about Mississippi, when you're going down to Ten Tom, probably about a little over halfway down. Now, they kept saying they was closer and closer, you know, I would stop and say, and Angie was actually with me, and she was like, ain't no alligators here, and we stopped at a lock to lock through, and we was kinda just drifting around waiting on the lockmaster to open the gates, and she was sitting there kinda fussing about not seeing no alligators, and all of a sudden I looked out front, right 10 foot from the front of the boat, man, and there was one stretched out all the way across there, about 12 foot across. Hey, look right there, you know. And then we started seeing them consistently laying on the banks and stuff. It was the rest of the way down. So I would say about halfway. I think it's a 600-mile trip by river. You know, so I'm gonna say about 300 miles. But I mean, before then, we would ask about, you know, you ever see
Get
alligators?
close to
Oh yeah. Everybody, you know, the locals would be like, oh yeah, they're around.
Yeah.
They're around.
TWRA last year claimed that there was a sighting of one this side of Pickwick Dam down there at Savannah. Of course, I
They
can't
get
confirm
close,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that means they're in
They're journeying their way up.
Kentucky Lake.
Has Keith ever wrestled an alligator on a bank? Yeah.
Yeah.
I figured that, you know what I'm saying? He's like that.
I figured.
There ain't much he ain't done, you know?
That's true. He's done it all. That's for sure. Old Keith, Uncle Keith there, he's our guy.
Kind of our security or
Basically.
advisor, or
Yeah.
he's, what does kid?
I don't know what he does. We have to find out what he does.
He's always around, you know what I'm saying?
We have to find out his time.
Kind of like Solo, just support.
Just
Moral
support,
yeah.
support.
You know, if we need anything, we ask him, he always get good advice for
Yeah,
us, right?
That's right. He talks a lot now, I'll tell you.
So, do you ever come across it when, you know, everybody sees in the summertime, you always have, unfortunately, 2, 3, 4 drownings on the river. Do you ever get called by the TWRA or anybody to help dive for remains?
Yeah, one time, but now TWRA didn't call us, they have their own rescue squad and everybody. But after, this is many years ago too, it is the worst dive I ever made, I guess. But the TVA and the rescue squad had given up looking for the folks. They had been out in a boat turned over, it's bad weather, 3 of them didn't make it to shore. Several days go by of searching, nobody's been recovered, and they called the search off. The family's just going crazy, you know, and they knew about local divers, so they called us. And I don't know, there's a dozen or so of us that we went out and looked for 2 days. I went the first day, the other ones went back the second day, but they had us looking in the wrong location because the folks had drifted and they finally surfaced on their own several days later. But the whole time you're down there looking for somebody like that, I mean, it's just no other feeling like it. It's just so, it's hard to prepare yourself for something like that, and
You want to find them, but you don't.
yeah, exactly,
It's kind of like,
exactly.
you know, I want to be the one, and do I really want to be the
Right.
one to help, you know?
It's
And talk about the currents, you talked about that, the miles being different, because that is one thing that there is an art form to, or science to, that currents, with the deeper you go, them things are pretty strong and stout, and, or
Well,
not, or.
not really. I mean, now undertows and such are more, I guess, in the ocean, but in the river, you know, the current, like in the channel, is going to be harder than it is in the lake bed. But yeah, like in the current, all depends on the dams. If they've got the dams open and more current, like just last night, I noticed the water dropped 6 inches. TVA can fluctuate this water. It's for flood control. That's why
Right.
they created the lakes in the first place. So yeah, they can run a lot of current, like after a big significant rainfall, you know, you don't wanna really be out there I've been out there diving before where you turn your head sideways and your mask will get ripped off. And, so yeah, it can be dangerous. That's why we wear, like, when we're diving for shells, we wear 50 pounds of lead to hold us to the bottom.
Right. Then you
Boots
use
with
your air to
spikes
bring you
on.
back up, right?
Well,
Ain't there something to do?
we climb up our hose,
Climb
yeah.
back up. I think I watched Burn Sea Gold, I know a little bit about it, you know what I'm saying?
You won't be a diver,
No,
don't you?
no, we're gonna hey, I did dive one time, now, it was, you know, out in Florida in one of them little parks, you know, where you're in 5 foot of water.
Right.
It
I
was
want
cold,
to see you
man.
put one of these suits like that on there, man.
Now, there's actually places in Florida you can go and do that.
Put them suits
Yeah,
on.
yeah, they got
Have you ever put one of them on?
No, I
You
never have.
Never got
And that's just you know, I wish.
Yeah,
we
it
had-
looks like one of them old Navy, you know, I
Yeah.
see that, it reminds me of a Navy diver,
It's
you know,
it's a
the
beer
old.
cooler.
Oh, it ain't no beer coat,
No,
it ain't nothing in it.
it's an ice bucket. It's an ice
Ain't nothing
bucket.
in it, I think Jason got excited over there, first second he said beer coat, who am I like?
That's just a ice bucket.
You're not taking that back.
This one used to be a lantern. It was fixed with natural gas,
Right.
and it had a little
Yeah.
flame inside it. But yeah, I've never dove with those types
Yeah,
of.
I always see them,
products.
man, I think, God, man, I don't know, man, I'll be claustrophobic in it, you know what I mean? Especially when you see them put them on there and they lock it thing.
Yeah, that's one thing about
Oh,
being
the
a
things, do
diver.
they lock, or they just sit on your shoulder?
Well, it's got a breastplate that goes on first, and that's connected to your suit, and then the helmet fits over and locks in. I'm not sure of the apparatus how it actually works.
But there are ones that just kinda sit on your shoulder and the
Yeah,
air
yeah,
kinda keeps
exactly,
the,
yeah,
the
they do,
pressure right,
they do,
right, just
yeah,
kinda sits there.
yeah, and you can't bend over or anything like that with those, yeah, you gotta stay upright.
So what do you use, just a mask?
Yeah, I've got just a mask and a regulator, and then I bought a full face mask here a few years ago when they came out with them. I don't like it much, I rarely use it, I like the freedom of just my mask.
So if I was gonna, like I said, now I'm a proud owner of a houseboat on Deep Dock somehow, just Nathan put me in on that, and Jason got one. So, and what we was talking before we come on air, what would be the process of me hiring you, and what's the price range if I wanted to bottom my boat cleaned out? What's the
Okay.
purpose? Why would you do that? Why do I need to have it done as a boat owner?
Right.
And what would be the process of getting in touch with you, and what would be the price range on something like
Well,
that?
many years ago, when the shell business started to crap out, I got into other revenues of diving, such as search and recovery for lost items. I've recovered, you know, prosthetic limbs to eyeglasses to phones, dentures. I had a guy catch a fish one time, and he got so excited he sneezed his dentures out in the water.
It happens.
And then houseboats, you know, if you run a boat aground, a big boat now, big boats are hard to get out of the water, require a big truck and a big trailer, you know. So if you ran that aground and damaged your prop, a diver can come in, inspect the prop, remove the prop, replace the prop. These boats sit in the water so long, the algae in the Tennessee River, which is a good thing, it shows that we've got good quality water, that algae wouldn't grow. It accumulates on the bottom of a hole, and it will slow the boat down by half the speed sometimes. Plus, it'll deteriorate your fuel economy, you know, greatly. So the benefits to cleaning the algae off the bottom of your hole, you know, is more speed and better fuel economy. And then I would have that done, you know. I usually recommend to my customers, depending on how often they're gonna take their boat out, at least once a year. But if it's gonna sit there, you know, most of the year, and they're just gonna take it out a couple of times, maybe have me clean it before each time you go out. The price is $7 a foot for just the cleaning, and then if you want a video inspection, I charge $8 a foot. So if you've got a 50-foot boat, you know, 7 times 5 is $350 to clean the algae off.
How would people get a hold of you?
On Facebook, Chuck Work on Facebook, or my phone number is, I guess I can give my phone number.
yeah.
Area code 731-845-4027.
Well, you go down there and wash mine in the spring.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yeah, I'm hiring them right here.
All right, sounds
So you got one job off this
Right,
podcast.
go too.
And Jason's got 17 boats. We discussed this. He
Right.
probably needs a few done too.
Right.
You know a good mechanic that can get them to the channel. I mean, that's been an ongoing story with us.
He thinks I
Jason's
can't
got
make it. He
17
thinks I
boats,
can't make it.
but none of them are running good enough to get to the channel. Now, he can float them out there, you know, where everybody sits out there and does their little
Right.
swim.
Hey,
We need Jason to
that's
get
what I
a
wanna
boat.
see it, man.
We
Less
need
gas.
every, hey, he bought a boat last year, right? Finally went out, broke down, bought this big high dollar tri-tune for 2 weeks, man. It was like the Roadrunner running up down the river. How many times did you fill that boat up in the 2 weeks?
I don't know, a lot, yeah.
Hey, he was gonna go. He finally had a boat that would make it to the river, paid all this money for it. And I couldn't even keep up with him, man. It was like, where you at right now? I'm at Cuba Land. Where you at right now? Oh, I'm
Catch
Danville.
me.
You know, 10 minutes later, he was in Danville. It was back and forth. He made a path up down that river. Then 2 weeks later, he blowed it up.
Blowed it up, man.
It's done. You know, I called him one day. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm getting towed in.
Oh, no.
I said, what? He said, I'm getting towed in. He had to call his tow guards or whoever
Yeah,
does
that's
the
no
towing.
fun. I
Towboat
run,
US.
I don't
Yeah,
play
Towboat
around.
US, you
I
know.
don't play around with them, man, I run them.
He runs a big bull, pulls them into the dock, keeps the dock slip rented, and buys another one, you know?
Right, right.
So we need to,
He's working, he's like me, he's working on a flotilla of boats.
That's
we
right.
need to get that figured out for him.
I've got 4 now.
And it might be because he's improperly cleaning the bowl of his boat. I thought
That's probably
Right.
You know,
I
maybe
think
if
Chuck
you
in there and fix
Get
it.
Chuck, fix you up, clean the
Yeah.
bottoms of your boat.
I'm definitely gonna do that too, though.
Well, and you know, there's a lot of things, on these big boats especially, like a little boat, you can put it on the trailer, haul out, and do the maintenance yourself. But these big boats, you know, like the anodes on these boats that are, you know, are there to protect your metal parts from erosion and electrolysis. I can change those, props. We've done just about every part that comes off the bottom of a boat, I've done underwater.
Yeah.
One thing I'm worried about, Jason, we was talking about this last year, is I was like, when I bought this boat, I was like, he told me, he said, you need to go to Chuck and get it cleaned off. Now, he said, you don't have so much stuff on there, it's liable to sink the boat up. So is that an issue? I mean,
Well, it won't sink it, but it'll certainly make it go a lot slower. It's just drag, it's like you attach a shaft.
I'm talking about if
Like
you
them
have,
boots and stuff, you know, back there, if you start cleaning on them and if they're.
or you got a hole that something's covering it up,
Right,
you know?
well, now, if that
hole.
boat's got out, you don't have boots on the back of it, you've
No,
got shaft
no,
driven,
that's
you're
right.
shaft driven,
You're
so,
shaft driven,
but
yeah.
yeah, these
See,
older
you got me
boats,
all worried
Yeah.
for nothing.
Well, you need to be worried, you still gotta be, always gotta be worried about
He
that.
called me, I hadn't had that boat. I bought it. He called me one night. It was about 9 o'clock. You know, Jason's the type, if it gets 6 o'clock, you might not need to answer the phone. Because he might be in the cooler pretty hard, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, well, he calls me one night, like, hey, your boat's sunk. I ain't even on this thing 2 weeks. I said, "Dude, what? You're sinking, it's sunk." I said, what?
Well,
He just told me when I bought it, the water ain't 5 foot deep, and I'm thinking the boat probably 20 foot high. It couldn't have sunk that way. You know what I'm saying? I'm thinking if it just sat down on the bottom, it's only 5 foot
I
right
just try to
there.
help, man.
You're sinking, man, you're sinking. Well, I said, all right then. I rolled back over. I thought I'll go down there more and look at it. It's, like I said, it's 5 foot of water. Well, it ain't gonna go completely under them. But Nathan calls, you know what I'm saying? We got pumps, we're headed that way. He done got Tucker up, done got Josh maybe even up. Hey, Josh said, what? He said, yeah, Jason called, said your boat sunk, we going down there and get it up. I said, well, I'm gonna have to get up, you know?
Well, that story right there goes back, somebody called and told me, I wasn't down
I'm
there.
just telling you.
Yeah. I went down there.
Then Nathan gets back down there, calls, he said, your boat's dry as a bone. I don't know what he thought, and Jason wouldn't answer the phone the rest of the night, you know what
No,
I'm
it was
saying?
like one of them Libyans down there, walked by it, and, said, man, that boat, your buddy bought, he said, it's sinking. I said, it's sinking. He said, that water line where it used to be, he said, it's under where it's supposed to be, and it's leaning. So I thought, well, hell, I better call Rusty. And then all chaos broke loose.
Then he went to bed. That might go down there, he went to sleep.
I went home to sleep.
well, if it ever does sink, I can handle salvage as well.
Yeah.
I've raised, I don't know how many boats
See, that's
over the
another thing we're
years.
gonna get into too. Hey, let's take a break, y'all want to, and then we'll come back, we'll watch a little video
Yeah,
too.
sounds
about it,
good.
man, and, we'll talk about the salvaging too.
All right.
Talk about that helicopter.
Sounds good.